welcome to another park date. I am here at my beloved London Fields Lido, where you can basically always see me. It's not a park, but it's by a park, and that park is London Fields, of course, as the name suggests. If you keep your eyes open, you can see all kinds of people here. I've seen Alice Levine swimming, and Jamie Demetriou, and someone who looks like a member of the Darkness, who may or may not be a member of the Darkness, I'm not sure. But the reason I'm introducing the episode from here is because the other day I ended up talking to Mr. Christopher Biggins here, and from that conversation we decided that we would do an episode of Park Date together, and that's the episode that you're about to hear. Christopher Biggins has starred in so many things: Upstairs, Downstairs, Porridge, Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads, I, Claudius, Rent a Ghost, Poldark, Surprise Surprise, Psychoville, and latterly in programmes such as I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which he won, and Celebrity Master Chef. Celebrity Big Brother as well. Christopher is an actor that everyone of a certain age will know. I certainly remember seeing him on many screens when I was young, and also in pantomime, which is something else that he's famous for. Me and Chris convened in Wells Street Common in Hackney, near to where he lives, and it was a great chat, and that's what you're going to hear now. If you like Park Date, as always, do subscribe, and please leave a review. I'll be reading out the funniest reviews. Check out our socials at Park Date Podcast, the website parkdate.co.uk, and you can follow me at Christopher Beanland. Do enjoy. A little pre-introduction. Wells Street Common. I've just met Christopher Biggins, and he's gone to find a seat, so we're going to go and catch up with him. Can you believe this though? I was just thinking, Christopher Biggins, I can't believe that this one has happened. I can see Chris up there taking his seat, so we're going to go and find him. This is a little, well, this is a little like secret little insight for you before this happens. Oh my gosh, somebody else has sat on the bench. How am I going to deal with this? I need William Hanson to help me with this situation, but yeah, listen ahead, because there's going to be a part of me that's going to be like an excited kid, because I am about to talk to Christopher Biggins. You might enjoy how this one goes. Okay, right, I'm about to say hello now. I have to be professional. Welcome to Wells Street Common. I'm here with the one and only Christopher Biggins. Chris, how are you? Thank you for joining me today.
I'm very well, thank you. It's nice to be sitting in the park. I mean, this park is nearly off my home.
Yeah.
And a few more yards to the right, as I'm looking out, is, of course, the Great Victoria Park, which is a wonderful park. I remember when I first moved here 35 years ago, we had our own Lido.
Yes.
And overnight, and I'll never forget it, I nearly wanted to go and kill somebody. The council came and filled it in without telling. I'm sure they did tell people, but I didn't know about it, and I was furious because it was a beautiful Lido. And it's a great park. I mean, the history of it is, of course, Queen Victoria. She came and she built all these Victorian houses, which are beautiful, for her staff at Buckingham Palace. And interestingly enough, oh goodness, what's her name? Oh, this is ridiculous. This is age, you know. Now this is. I love this playing games.
You still look very young and sprightly.
Oh well, no, but there is the memory goes. But it's the girl who is in Loose Women, very outspoken, Cockney girl.
Oh, yeah, I can't think.
Oh, goodness, this is ridiculous.
Was she involved in the...
No, her husband at the time, years ago, did a fantastic documentary on the making of that Victoria Park, and it was a brilliant, very good documentary. You should watch it. It's great. Yeah. And this is ridiculous. I can't think of her name. She's a great friend. She's in my podcast. Janet Street Porter.
Janet Street Porter.
Yes. So one of her husbands, and she's been married many times, did this marvellous documentary on the park. And of course, parks are wonderful, and that is the joy, one of the joys. The joys are leaving me constantly because I now hate London. But one of the joys of London is the parks. Yeah. I mean, we have so many. And I think, if I'm right, Victoria Park is the largest park in London. It's
very big, isn't it?
And it's separated by a main road, of course, which traffic go along. And there's a deer, and there's a lake, and it's beautiful. It really is wonderful.
Very, very beautiful. And I think it was built for the people. Yeah. It was supposed to be a kind of democratic thing, wasn't it? So we could all enjoy, or everyone in the East End could enjoy the trees and the open space.
And I remember when we had the lockdown, it was wonderful to see people. You'd come here and walk for an hour or so, and you'd meet other people, and you'd meet families who live in high block flats, and of course there was nowhere for them to go except that they were able to go here and walk around. They couldn't sit down or stand or in one place for a particular length of time, but at least it made you aware of how families suffer in blocks of flats where they have nowhere to go. And so the joy of living round any park is you actually can walk into it.
Yeah, it's really important to have that access to open space, isn't it? If you live in London.
And trees, I think trees are the most wonderful things ever. I mean, they are extraordinary. Looking around here now, the size of them, the beauty of them, the colour of them. I mean, they're just magnificent. I mean, wonderful.
Yeah, we can see so many different types of really old, tall trees all around. We're on Wells Street Common, which is just next to Victoria Park. And there's lots of very large, very old trees.
It's funny, on meeting here today, you had to go to the loo, didn't you, in the pub? And so I said I'll walk on and find a seat, and I found a seat and sat on it, and then a very nice woman came and sat next to me, so we had to move from there.
And then we were walking to the next bench, and then what happened?
A woman came in front of us and sat on the bench.
Sat in front of us again, so
So if the council are listening, we'd like more benches,
More benches,
please.
More benches.
Perhaps we could reserve them. It could make a bit of money.
We should do that, exactly. Yeah, we should do that. I mean, maybe more people will want to do podcasts in parks. But we were talking about Victoria Park, and it reminded me, Chris, when you mentioned that, of your appearance in Jonathan Mead's programme about Queen Victoria, Victorian architecture, which is one of your many appearances that I'd forgotten.
Well, I'd forgotten until you mentioned it, funny enough.
It came to me. That was actually brilliant. Very surreal performance.
Oh, it was. I loved it. Jonathan is a fantastic documentary maker.
Yeah.
And a film man. I mean, he's truly wonderful. Very, very bright. And I knew him socially, and then he asked me to do this, and I was thrilled. And it was a great, great shoot. We went all over the place, me dressed as Queen Victoria, and there wasn't anything sort of pantomime about it. It was really, serious costume and a serious look to her.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
It worked really well. Yeah.
But I'm very thrilled when people, it's like in my career I've done so many things, but I'm always thrilled when people mention things like what you just mentioned, Jonathan Mead, and also things like Poldark, where I played the sex-crazed vicar. I'm always pleased when people remember that. And also my performance as Nero in I, Claudius. And then, of course, everybody remembers all the sort of stuff that, with Cilla Black and my quiz programmes with children and things. And so that I love, but it thrills me that people remember those wonderful things that I've done.
Yeah, well, you've got a very memorable face as well, and you mentioned the Lido in Victoria Park. I think it's very sad as well that Lido was closed down, and who knows, maybe in the future it might reopen. But
which one?
The one in Victoria Park that was...
No, I mean, it'll never reopen. I mean,
so.
Because they've made it, they filled it in. I mean, that was the terrible thing. Overnight, I was furious. And then they now use it as a car park, mainly for filming films.
Oh,
so they
that's
get
where the car park is where the
So they have what do they call them? Those things that actors sit in.
Yeah.
On location.
Yeah, like the camper van things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they're rather sort of grand, and so it'll never be filled in. It'll never be opened again, I'm sure, because they couldn't afford it. But we met at that lovely one,
London Fields Lido.
London Fields, which is fantastic. First time I've ever been.
It was the first time you'd been, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And did you enjoy it? That day?
Very much. It was a bit cold, I thought.
Right.
And apparently, they don't switch the heating on if it's been a sunny day.
Okay. I can speak to the management about that.
But I think
Christopher Biggins says, "Would you turn the heating up a little bit?"
But the thing is, though, I think, what are they going to do this winter? I mean, what are we all going to do this winter?
Yeah. No one can have the heating on, can they?
No, I mean, it's just going to be terrifying. I don't know what. And of course, Liz Truss has been announced today as a new Prime Minister, which I think is a disaster. Mind you, I didn't want any of them, but we'll see. She promised lots of things this morning on the radio or television. So let's see what she does. But we all know about political promises. They're not that great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you must have seen a few, PMs come and go over the years, a few changes in society, and obviously you've been in so many things as well. We started to talk about them, didn't we, Chris? But you mentioned some of your favourite roles. I was going to ask you which are the things that you've really enjoyed being in, but you've been in so many different things as well, haven't you?
I know. I mean, obviously, I have to mention the dramas that I've done, and of course, in these early days, I was an actor, and I've mentioned I Claudius, Poldark, and other dramas that I did. I loved doing those, and they've been fantastic, and I'm really proud of them. When people say to me now, what is the most memorable, important thing in your life? And bizarrely enough, my answer is, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here.
Right.
Because it was the most extraordinary experience ever.
Yeah.
And it was quite fantastic to do, I can't tell you. And also to be voted in as a winner, King of the Jungle, by the public meant an awful lot, because and you suffer in there. The biggest thing.
It's brutal. Yeah,
it is brutal. And also, the biggest thing is the boredom, because you only see 1 hour of our 24 hours, and we're in there, nothing to read, nothing to watch, nothing to listen to, just with your fellow contestants, of whom some are nice and some are hideous. And so it makes for. I think it works at its best when people don't get on and don't come up with the goods. And I think that has been lost over the couple of years. Like, I think Wales was a disaster. So I'm pleased it's going back to Australia, and I think there'll be a lot of. I haven't heard actually who's in any of them. They're doing another one.
Well, wasn't there talk of a sort of winners?
No, it's not a winners. What they're doing is they're putting in, I think, the most difficult people, like Gillian McKeith. If I'd been in the jungle with Gillian McKeith, I know exactly where I would have buried her. Because she did nothing, and it would have been perfect. I could still see the spots where she would have been buried. And a few people like that. My friend Toff is it going there? No, yeah, she's doing the best Toff, that's right. And
Toffolo.
Toffolo, who is lovely, great girl, and so that's in South Africa, which I think will be great. But they're so good, Ant and Dec. They're marvellous.
Yeah, what are they like to be around?
You don't see much of them, but they are great.
Yeah,
and they're phenomenal. I mean, every TV show they touch is a gold mine. I mean, it's fantastic. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, they've been in a lot of things over the years, haven't they?
Yeah.
I remembered first seeing them in Biker Grove when they were doing kind of children's TV, where they started out, as a lot of people do. It's very, very cute. There's always a dog joins us on this podcast.
It's a lovely dog.
You've done a bit of children's TV as well. I remember when I was young, seeing you in a few things.
Rent-A-Ghost. Well, Rent-A-Ghost I absolutely adored. That was as mad as...
Rent-A-Ghost is a classic children's programme.
Classic. I mean, it was one of the... I spoke this morning to the producer-director, Jeremy Swan, who's a mad Irishman, and that comes across in that series. I mean, it was truly wonderful. And Anne Emery, and Michael Staniforth, who was one of the first people I knew died of AIDS in the business, and he was a wonderful actor. Not only was he played the lead in Rent-A-Ghost, but he also was a huge West End star. He did in Stephen Sondheim musicals. he played the lead. He was just wonderful, and it was tragic. He was such a nice boy. He wrote the theme tune for Rent-A-Ghost as well.
Very catchy tune.
Very catchy tune. And then I did a quiz program for children called On Safari, which I loved. Did you ever watch that?
I remember that, yeah. TVS, wasn't it?
TVS, that's right. Yeah. And that was a great experience. I loved it. No, I'm very proud. When I look back and I look at my CV, I can't believe the things I've done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been, 55 years of really exciting work.
Yeah, and a lot of actors, I know plenty of actors who don't get work.
No,
and
I know.
You've kind of always had things on, and interesting things as well. Yeah,
it's been fantastic. I mean, I always say when kids come to me for advice about acting, I say don't do it.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a horrible job.
It's tough, isn't it?
It's tough.
Yeah.
And I know so many talented actors, really talented actors, who do nothing. They have to go and work in shops. They go and have to work in a restaurant, and it's not to do with talent anymore. It's now to do with being in the right place at the right time, and being lucky. And that's what you've got to accept. You can't accept, and it hurts me a lot to see really, really good actors not working. And there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, because we don't have... In my day, when I first started, there were repertory companies. And I was lucky enough to live in Salisbury. We had a wonderful rep company. So when I left school at 16 and a half, I went to the Salisbury rep for one job, and I stayed for 2 years. I was on £2 a week for the first year as a student ASM. Then I went up to, I think it was £8 a week for the second year as a stage manager. And it was a real grounding time, and you could play all sorts of things. And there are very few actors who have survived Salisbury Rep. I mean, one of them is a brilliant actress who was my mentor at Salisbury, called Stephanie Cole, who was a wonderful comedy actress and did so many different, and a character actress, and did so many different things, has done so many different things over the years, and still working. But it's
Stephanie Cole, of course.
Yeah, I mean, she's a wonderful actress, and as I say, is still working. But those are few and far between. I mean, it's awful. It's a terribly disappointing business to be in, because, as I said, there are so many good actors out there. You go and see a show, like a West End show or a show in the provinces. We recently went to Cheltenham to see Great British Bake Off, the musical, and it was full of wonderful, wonderful actors. Absolutely wonderful. And some of them work a lot, and some of them just don't. I mean, that's the sad fact of this business.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? And you see actors, directors, writers, all kinds of creative people with great ideas, and the great ideas aren't always being made.
No.
And then you switch on the TV and you think, well, why the hell has this been made, and why is this person in this program? Some of the decisions are quite bizarre, aren't they?
I agree with you. I think sometimes the people who make decisions never ask the public what they want. And there are things I watch nearly every. I love television. I mean, I really do.
Me too.
I'm fascinated by it, and I always try and watch things. And I'll give it, Sky Plus. I love, so you can record something, and then, but most of it I stop looking at after the first episode, because it's just appalling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible what rubbish they put on.
It's some very bad shows on. Yeah.
I can't talk against reality TV shows, because it's A, I won one, and B, I earned a lot of money from it for the following year. So it's been
great. Are they well paid?
Oh yeah, I mean, not the actual show is not well paid. I mean, it all depends. If you can, if they want you and they know, the artist knows, then you can ask for a lot of money. I think I got £50,000 for doing. But afterwards, you earn a fortune.
Right.
Everything, all your salaries go up, and everybody wants you, and it is a marvellous money earner. But once again, that's the only the people who win are the most important. Except that this interesting. I think this program they're going to do in South Africa, I think there are very few winners in it. It's all the people who didn't win.
Right.
That they're bringing back, which is interesting, because the winners. I don't know what it is, they don't like the winners or something. But anyway, there's it's an interesting thing that people want to go back, and I've heard some people say, I'm going back to bring up my profile again, which of course it does. But there's a terrible amount of terrible reality shows.
Yeah.
I mean, the Love Island. I mean, I can't bear Love Island.
Oh no, this is one thing we're going to have to differ on, Chris. I'm a bit of a Love Island fan.
Are you really? Would you like to do it?
No, never. There's no way I would go on it. However, there is something oddly compelling about it. I don't know what it is.
No, I can't.
It doesn't work for you, though.
No, there's a marvellous drama on at the moment. Have you got Paramount TV?
Yeah.
There's a marvellous drama about the making of The Godfather.
Oh, I'll have to watch that.
Oh, it is, honestly, it's fantastic. It's 10 episodes. I'm on number 9. And I don't want it to finish. It is absolutely superb. And it's all about the producers and directors and that were involved in the making of the brilliant film and all the things they were up against. I mean, the mafia absolutely didn't want... And they murdered people because of that film.
Really?
And, men would go into restaurants and shoot 6 people at a table.
Right.
because of The Godfather. I mean, it's amazing. And some of the producers were drug addicts and, alcoholics. And there they were running Paramount, one of the biggest film companies in the world. I mean, it's a fascinating, brilliantly done series. Everybody is so good in it.
That sounds so interesting. I love those things which show you behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
Well. Things about the making.
I know.
As a telly addict as well and a film lover, anything about film or TV.
Dear,
Chris.
I'm so embarrassed.
Chris's phone's just gone off.
Oh, hang on.
Do you want to get it?
No. No, it is.
Yeah, seeing behind the scenes is always interesting.
It is interesting, but this is a drama documentary, so it's not, this is how we filmed it. It is brilliant. They've just been to Sicily, where they didn't think they could go to Sicily because it's a very small budget, and because some of the head people in Paramount didn't think it was going to be a success. Of course, it was one of the biggest successes ever for a film, and there's a wonderful sequence where they've just been on last night, where they showed it to all the villains, all the mafia people, and to begin with, they're all gung-ho and say, "You'll be dead before the end of this," to the producer and all that, and then they just show flashes. They show the lighting changing on the screen, but they don't show the screen. They just show the faces of these guys and their moles and how they're reacting. And at the end, they give it a standing ovation. I mean, they just love it.
Yeah.
But people, I think, thought that it would be bad for the mafia, which of course it was.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a scene last night also when they went to film in Sicily, where the blowing up of the car, and it was they could only do it in one take, and it was pandemic because things fell everywhere, nearly on the crew. Bits of metal burning and things. But it is such a good show, and it should have a bigger audience. I mean, I'm not saying that Paramount's not bigger, but I hate these things you have to pay for all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very, very, very interesting though, and I think it's fun and it's exciting to see behind the curtain.
Yeah,
it is
to
see how things are made.
Yeah,
I was always really fascinated by that. But that makes me think as well, Chris. As you said, you love TV. You've obviously been in a lot of things. You kind of studied it as well. Was there ever a part of you that thought that you might like to direct or produce or write things?
Yeah, no, I couldn't write, but I could easily produce or direct. But the only problem is I'd much rather be a film director and use one camera. I think when you have 4 or 5 cameras on a television set for a drama, I think then it's more difficult. I think it's easier to control one camera because then the production is being seen through your eyes. No, that's one of my ambitions, is to make a film. I've just worked with Rex, whose father, and we did a marvellous little film, which is winning some awards, which is great. And his father was, and you'll know now, I'm gonna think about his name, but he did The Boyfriend, film of The Boyfriend.
Oh,
do you remember him?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Oh, dear.
Director.
Our memories are failing us today, aren't they?
Oh, God, it's awful. But his son, who is a lovely boy and a very good director, Rex, he directed this film, and it was interesting to see it through his eyes. And he's made a very good short film.
Yeah.
Bizarre subject, but very very good.
Well, that's really interesting. I've been writing a short film about Lidos, set in a Lido, so maybe you could come along and direct that one. That could be your directorial debut.
Absolutely, I'd love to do that. Yes, it'd be great. What, do you see it as a drama? Do you see people drowning in the deep end?
No, more like a. Well, we could do that. I was thinking more of a gentle love story, but we could have some drownings as well.
And people saying how. I think that Lidos are wonderful things, especially in areas like this. Yeah. You know, because it means that otherwise you have to pay a lot of money to go to Soho House, you know, and use their swimming pool or what have you, and become a member.
Yeah, and when you go to the pool at Shoreditch House or White City House in the summer, there's no one's really swimming properly in the pool. People are just drinking their cocktails, standing around. So you can't even really swim your lengths, can you?
I quite like the fact that it's the one we met at in. Where's it called again?
London Fields.
London Fields.
Yeah.
London Fields. I think that what I liked about it was there was a lane for the slower person who wants to, you know, and you could, because I do
slow, medium, fast.
I've had a new knee put in. I like to do walking, and the aqua type exercise is just brilliant for the leg. So it's really
they
good.
really are, exactly. And it's funny you say that as well. I used to be a runner, Chris, and I had some knee problems, and that's one of the reasons that I go swimming every day, because swimming.
Do you go every day?
Yeah, and it's very low impact, very good for
it is
very good for your knees.
It is good.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Have you given up running?
I have given up running. Yeah, I think my days of running the London Marathon are over. Sadly.
Have you done some marathons?
I did London Marathon, yeah, and
this year?
No, it was a few years ago now,
right.
And it was fantastic. I really, really loved it, but it's very, very high impact on the knees.
I'm
sure. Yeah, and they can give up very easily. So I hope yours isn't giving you too much trouble.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm lazy, so I should do more exercise. But you know, it's a brilliant operation, and I went National Health. I've absolutely love the National Health. They are absolutely wonderful. And in fact, heroes. I used to have insurance, and then I would claim for something, and there was always an excuse they wouldn't pay it. And so I gave it up, and I've got premium bonds, which I've got as a backup should anything happen. But, you know, I had the knee done. They put a new knee in. Absolutely brilliant. Wonderful. And there's no pain at all there. It's just the muscle around it. In the thigh muscle to, you know, making me stand up and walk and things, which will get better as time goes on. And then the other thing, I had a new valve put into my heart, and so I'm like Bionic Man sitting here with you. I mean, it's amazing. But you know, the National Health are wonderful, and my theory was that if, you know, after all these years of paying in, if you have a heart attack, they're the best place to go. You know, National Health is, because of course the problem is now getting in. I mean, that's what they've got to organise, the government, that they have to. But there's nowhere else. I think, in a way, because I'm a conservative to the left, I don't want poverty, I don't want people starving, I want people to be looked after. And I think perhaps we should pay for smaller operations. Like, you know, this knee would have cost £25,000. Now, I think if it was £1,000, more people would pay for it.
Yeah,
and they should ask people for a little bit of money, because I think that's the only way of doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it, to kind of working out how it would work. I think the thing you want to avoid is, you know, when you go to America, you see people who can't afford operation just left to die.
I know.
On the street, and that's just very. It makes me quite upset.
Well, it makes me upset too. I mean,
the
first thing they ask for is a credit card.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, and it's you know, you get a list of here's what you've got to pay for everything.
Yes,
we are very lucky to have access to that. But that's great that they've been able to fix you up as well, and it shows what they can do these days.
Yeah, they are marvellous.
They can fix anything.
They can fix anything. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's.
You'll be going till 200 or something.
Oh, I hope not. The thought of getting to 100 is a horrible thought. No, I think that is the other trouble, of course, with society now. We're all living much longer lives. I mean, you know, years ago I'd be dead.
Yeah.
You know, and in a way, that's a good idea, but we're all living way, way beyond, you know, and that's causing the problem, I think, for the government and for society, is that the old age people are enormous. There's an enormous amount of us.
Well, and it's funny at the Lido as well. I always see a lot of very, very old people.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes me happy to see older people going there.
Yeah,
excuse me,
good.
and keeping healthy and.
But you know, I'm amazed how cheap it is to go there.
Yeah, £5 or something.
Oh no, if you're 73, you get it much cheaper.
Is it cheaper for you?
£1.45, I think.
That's a bargain.
It is a real bargain. I mean, I just don't understand. I think, you know, that people should pay more if they can afford it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a wonderful, wonderful place. And have you eaten there?
In the cafe?
Yes.
Yes, they do a good toasty.
Do they?
Yeah, Caroline, who runs the cafe, does a great toasty, and what else they do? Some kind of sandwiches and ice creams and things.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very convivial kind of place to be. Yeah.
If you come out of the Lido and into the park, and you turn right to go into the river, if you look left, there seems to be a restaurant across the greenery. Do you know that restaurant?
Which one's that? Is that the pub?
It's like a glass. Oh, is it a pub? It's like a glass building.
I'm trying to think of which direction. There's a one called Pub on the Park, which is just kind of on the edge of.
Well, that could be it.
Maybe.
Have you been there? Is that nice?
It's not too bad. Yeah, it's not too bad. They do. What do they do? I think they do burgers and things like that. What kind of? Well, I mean, as a celebrity MasterChef, previous contestant, you must know your food as well, Chris. What's your? What's your kind of if you were going to go for a lunch after a Lido swim, what would you go for?
Well, I think I love Italian food. Yeah. And, you know, we've just been to Italy.
Lardo's good.
Where?
Lardo in Hackney.
Where's Lardo?
That's near to the Lido as well. And they do good Italian food.
L-A-D-O?
L-A-R-D-O.
Oh, Lardo.
Lardo.
Right,
Lardo.
Good. And is it expensive?
Not too bad.
Because what's happening at the moment is that all the restaurants are so expensive. I mean, you know, we like rosé in the summer and a bottle of rosé. We went, where did we go? And there was a bottle of rosé. Oh, I know, the National Theatre.
Yeah.
The other night, we went to eat in the National Theatre restaurant. And a bottle of rosé was £25, which is fine. Most restaurants, it's £50 for a bottle of rosé. And also the food has gone up. It's now so expensive.
Yeah.
And, you know, pubs are complaining that they're going to have to close because they can't afford what's happening. I mean, you know, if it increases, they worked out that a pint of beer will eventually cost something like £28 or something.
£28 for a beer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a joke.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
You know, it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Are you still a big cook at home, Chris? Do you like to cook a lot?
I used to like to cook, but now my partner Neil does all the cooking. He loves cooking.
Right.
And so...
well, that sounds like a great deal, Neil.
I know, it is great.
Neil's got dinner on the table every day.
Yeah. He's wonderful. And
what does he like to cook?
He likes to cook anything, really. And we're great Marks and Spencers and Waitrose fans for the ready meal, which, of course, is excellent if you're just two of you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it keeps the cost down, and there are some wonderful things.
M&S stir-fry deal is great,
Oh,
isn't
it's marvellous.
You can't beat that.
No, you can't, no. And you're silly if you don't go for it.
Yeah.
Because, as I've just said, everything is now so expensive. And you can buy rosé wine for like £6 or £7 a bottle.
Are you a big rosé fan?
I like rosé, and I like red.
Yeah. Your glasses are reminding me of rosé.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
Chris has got some glasses on which look a little bit like a nice rosé. Yeah.
No, they're very good.
They're very cool. Yeah.
Have you been to the restaurant in Victoria Park in the middle of the cafe?
Which one's that?
By the lake.
The Pavilion.
Yes.
Yeah, Pavilion Cafe. That's nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it's great, but I worry that, you know, the incentive to have a restaurant now is going. I mean, we've got a great friend called Jeremy King who's just lost all his restaurants in the West End for a terrible problem with moneylenders, and it is awful. I mean, the Ivy too, which used to be my favourite restaurant. Then a friend of mine, Richard Caring, bought the Ivy group, and now he's put all these ivy brasseries all over the country, and I was very anti that. I have to say, though, we went to the one in Cobham, and we've been to nearly all of them. They are brilliant, and they're a good price, and they serve wonderful food. And it's great that all these, provincial cities, towns, places, he's just opened one in Richmond, another one in Richmond, and they're fabulous, and they're marvellous buildings. So I sort of congratulate him, even though I was a bit nervous about it all to begin with, because you sort of, when the Ivy opened, it was, well, let me tell you, it was
kind of exclusive, wasn't it?
It was very exclusive. But let me tell you an interesting story. When I was quite young, a restaurant opened in Covent Garden called Joe Allen's. And I always thought restaurants were something you went to when you were hungry. I didn't realise there was a whole social side to eating. And Joe Allen has changed my life. The man who owned it became a very, very good friend of mine. And sadly, he's no longer, nor is Joe, who originated the one in America. And it changed my life because I've had the best nights in there. The tables, you sit at the table you want to sit. I remember one night that 52 was the best table because you could see who was coming in and who was leaving. And it was against a wall and it was perfect. And wonderful things happened. Like one day I went in and they said, "Chris, would you mind if we put you at table 40? I said, "I would. Why?" They said, "We've got someone very special coming in. We want to put in 50 and we don't want people staring at her." So I said, "Oh, all right then." So I went to sit on 40 and in came Elizabeth Taylor and sat on 50. So Elizabeth Taylor, and I remember with Jeremy Swan, who was the producer of Rent-A-Ghost, and I remember watching, I was eating soup, and every time I brought the spoon up, our eyes linked. And we didn't say anything, but at the end of the evening, she left, and she looked, we stood up, that's right, we stood up like gentlemen, and she said, "Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure." So
That's classy.
It really is classy. There were wonderful things that happened in that restaurant. I mean, it's moved now. Richard died sadly, and Joe has died. Joe, there was a man called Joe Allen. He lived in New York. He had restaurants in Paris. He had one in Los Angeles, one in Miami, they were, he was very popular. But now there is one in London, and there's still one in New York, but that's it.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, how you get those restaurants which are synonymous maybe with show business and celebrities, like you say, Joe Allen's or the Ivy or Chiltern Firehouse maybe more recently.
I can't bear the Chiltern Firehouse.
I haven't been there myself. Chris's face when I mentioned that was very, very funny.
Just awful. I can't tell you. No
You're
atmosphere
saying no to
at
that
all.
one.
Yes, definitely. It's got a very nice bar, but you're only allowed to use the bar if you're staying at the hotel.
Right.
But no, there are some wonderful restaurants in London, but they are so expensive now. It's not true.
Yeah. Would you ever open one?
I was going to open a club.
Yeah.
And years ago, I had a meeting with Paul Raymond, who owned Soho.
Raymond Review Bar.
Raymond's Review Bar. And the meeting was in his flat in Arlington House, which is where the Caprice was, which was one of my favourite restaurants. No longer there, sadly. And I went up, and the butler said, good morning, or good afternoon, whatever the time was. And he said, he's in the bathroom. I said, "Oh, well, I'll wait." He said, "No, please go in." So I went in, and there was a sofa, I thought it was terribly chic, next to the bath. And I sat on this sofa, and he was in the bath. and we had this discussion about clubs and things, and he was a lovely man.
He was just sat in the bath?
Laying in the bath when we talked. I thought it was incredible. And it was a wonderful meeting. I'll never forget it.
Incredible.
His daughter died, sadly, of drugs. And then her daughter now is the owner of Raymond's Review Bar. They've just opened a new theatre, which sounds wonderful, which I think they've been given a licence to do sort of pornographic stuff there or what have you.
Right.
So we shall be appearing there.
Yeah. You should do... you've had so many of these... you've got so many stories, Chris, so many things have happened to you. You should do a kind of... a sort of TV show about yourself. So many comedians do things like that, don't they?
I know.
Shows about them. So you could do a kind of Curb Your Enthusiasm where you were playing a version of you, right? So I've always thought you were very good. Your comic timing has always been very good, and in Porridge as well. You're very, very, very funny in that. Have you enjoyed doing comedy? Or do you prefer doing the straight roles?
Well, drama is much more rewarding, I think. Comedy is much more difficult because you do need a technique, and you do need to be able to. Timing is important, and working with Ronnie Barker was absolutely wonderful, and a lot of the cast who were all brilliant. So that's always been and I was very lucky enough to get the role of lukewarm in that, and that's put me in good stead for other things as well. It's interesting. It's just being, as I said earlier, it's being at the right place at the right time, and that's what acting is all about. It's not. Exactly. It's not being able to declaim a wonderful Shakespearean speech. I remember I played a man called David Conville, who was a lovely man, ran Regent's Park Open Air Theatre, where I've appeared and directed many, many times. And he asked me, he was doing Midsummer Night's Dream, and he asked me to do Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, I am not the usual casting for Puck, but I did it, and it was a great success. In fact, I was the best Puck in the park that year. And it was, it was a great experience to do something like that. I mean, it was truly wonderful. Yeah. But when you do a show in the park, and it rains because it's not covered, you have to wait for the stage manager a disembodied voice to say, will the actors kindly leave the stage? And they do that because they want to get to the interval, because if they get to the interval, they don't have to give the money back. So I'm there, and Kate O'Mara, do you remember Kate O'Mara?
Yes.
Wonderful actress with lovely big titties. And she was playing.
Can we keep that in? I don't know.
Of course you can. She was playing Titiana.
Yeah.
And I was playing Puck, and I was at her feet, looking up at her. And she had this big speech, and I had a big speech to follow. And I thought, oh, please, it started to rain. I said, please don't let me. Where's that body, that voice saying? Because I can't go, because what happened was it started to rain, and the rain ricocheted off her titties. And so it went ping, ping, and it started to rain heavier, and then I started to laugh. The audience then started to laugh. She laughed, and we were all hysterical. And thank God the voice said, will the actors please kindly leave the stage? Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened. It would have been pandemonium. But it was, it's wonderful things like that. Especially in theatre, is what's so wonderful.
That's a great story. Well, I think a disembodied voice is probably saying to us now, Chris, that it's time that we left the stage in this park. But just to round off, I just guess I wanted to ask you, what's next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Well,
working on the Lido film with me, of course.
Yeah, of course. The Lido film is going to be a highlight. I'm going to Plymouth. Mm-hmm. In 2 weeks' time to do it's the 40th birthday of the Theatre Royal in Plymouth, which is a lovely theatre which I've appeared many times. We're doing a week of shows there, and then from there I go to Daylesford, which is do you know the shops? They have the Bamfords, who are JCB, own a big grocery shop, and it's huge down in Daylesford. In that area, and it's a fantastic centre, and they were having a 2-day sort of festival, and I'm judging the dog show because of my experience with dogs,
fantastic,
which I have none at all. But luckily the categories are things like dog most like its owner, things like that. Yeah. So we do that, and then I go up from there. I go to Darlington, where I'm doing pantomime this year,
right,
and to do the press conference. And I come back, and I'm doing Countdown. So that's the next sort of month.
Brilliant. So look out for Chris on Countdown and in Panto in Darlington.
Yeah, and also Tipping Point I've just done, and I win a lot of money for my charity.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, excellent. Well done. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our chat.
Yes.
Even though we had all kinds of interruptions, as we often do. But it's been nice to talk to you today.
And you too.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much too.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Park Date. There's lots more where that came from. and there'll be more in the future as well. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review, good or bad, make them funny. I'll be reading out the best ones, and there'll be a prize for the one that makes me laugh the most. Name check some trees in your reviews and leave them wherever you get your podcasts from. Check out our website, parkdate.co.uk, and if you see me walking around in a park, come and say hello. I think that was the sound of someone sneezing. Yes. Thank you. Bye-bye. Coming up on the next edition of Park Date, it's a cocaine special. Join me, 2 comedians, 2 journalists, 1 musician, and a couple of their girlfriends as we discuss who is an absolute legend.